Welcome back everybody to the Coffman starter build. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Please hit the like and subscribe. It's going to help this channel out a lot. Honestly, I'm going to be putting a lot more content on here. This one here I know is a bit on the technical side, so I'm going to recap a little bit of what I'm doing, because probably some of the people that may have got on are wondering, well, you know, what is this guy actually building? I'm going to go just very quickly on the aircraft and the engine, because on YouTube, I mean, you can find out about a Hawker Typhoon. It's all over the place on the internet. I do have a color plate of what the plane looks like. So it does look, I'll show you guys, it looks like that. So that is a Hawker Typhoon. This particular aircraft, 18P pulverizer. This was flown by Harry Hardy, and he is an actual Canadian. Most Canadian Typhoon wings were bombs. They weren't rockets. Like most were, the English side was mostly rockets. Canadian side was mostly bombs. Their life expectancy, the bad thing about these pilots were very young, like 20s. And with the Typhoon, the life expectancy wasn't very high, because these guys were close combat, low to the ground, taking out all types of installations along the German front. Tanks, flak towers, whatever they could hit, they were hitting. They were armed with 20mm cannons, 4 of them. And like I said, bombs. And when they put the rockets on, they said it was equivalent to getting hit by a battleship. That's what the rockets were like. Were they accurate? A lot of people say they weren't, but they did devastate the German armor when they were trying to break through back after D-Day. They were trying to break through, and they absolutely devastated them. I'm not going to go through the whole history thing. Like I said, there's a ton of information. It's probably one of my favorite aircraft because of the horsepower of the engine. This is almost like a hot rod of the times. The engine on takeoff, they were rated like anywhere from 2,200 horsepower to 2,400 horsepower. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it was way up there. It's a 24-cylinder. It was a huge engine at the time. The shotgun starter, I will show you where that is. That is, I'll get a picture so you guys can understand. This is how big the engine is. The starter I'm working on is right there. It's this piece right here. And you can see the shotgun starter reel is right here. So what they would do is load these up with 6 shotgun shells. I think it's 6. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 6. 6 shotgun shells. And each time they want to fire the engine, the pilot would control it, would kick the engine over. And somebody said to me, oh, sort of like Flight of the Phoenix. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was, remember, they were down to 1 shell. I think they started with 3 and then they were down to 1 shell. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. The only thing with the Typhoon, this engine, after about the second, I think the second hit or third hit, there was always somebody standing there with a fire extinguisher because these were prone to catching fire. I'll show you one more example here. So here it is here. So I'll see if I can get that in there with no glare. So here's the engine. This is the starter right here. That's the starter that I'm working on. So you can see how the one I'm working on is quite large. But could you imagine what the engine would be if that starter is that big? So the engine's massive, right? If they did a kit of the engine. Here you can see the shotgun shells pretty clearly. There's one there, and they'll be going all the way around. And that's what actually cranked the engine over. So when they shot that shell off, all the air went through and shot that piston ahead, which turned the crank over. And you can see it's connected to the crank here. So this is the piece that I'm working on. So you guys, I thought I would do this so you have a general understanding of what I'm working on, because a lot of people look and go, man, what exactly is he doing? So this is what I'm doing. I think the Typhoon, like I said, it's a big piece of history, especially for Canadians as well, because we flew them in World War II. We lost a lot of people too flying them. It was quite the aircraft. Low-level ground support. It was quite the plane. Great platform on it. They armed it right up So it was like almost like A-10 now. If anybody knows what an A-10 is like a tank destroyer that the U.S. military has. It's sort of the same idea. So it was usually, they were put right up in the front, these guys. That's what's kind of really wild about it, is they would put them right up supporting the troops, right? So they were on these landing strips that were just made out of this mesh, and they were living in tents, these guys. And they were right close to the front so they could support them. So they sacrificed a lot. So like I said, it's awesome that they're going to get one of these planes running. That would be something to see. But that's the size of the engine. And this is just a cutaway of it. So I'm doing something similar. I'm doing a cutaway, but just of the starter. That's just this piece. That's all it is. We're going to get on to painting. So I just thought I'd recap that. I know it's a bit of a mess in here. My wife always comes in here and says to me, how do you work in this insanity? And I say, how do I not work in this? So you know what I'm talking about, guys. Guys and gals out there. I mean, we got a lot of female modelers as well. We are going to be going a little more in depth with this, and I will be going through the painting process as we go along. So this is going to be a little bit longer video. Okay. So now we're getting down to the fun part, which is painting, the part that all of us love. And it's the prep, the paint. And when you get to the painting, it's like, oh, we're almost there. So I have started painting this, and I'll show you exactly what I've done. Pull this piece off. Okay, we'll start with this piece. And I do have a little tiny mark right here that I noticed right there that I'm going to have to just do a little bit of putty on there. But I did take this down to a steel, and you can see here, I'm going to go with steel on this because it accents this scratch built piece quite well. So I'm going to go with steel. And how I achieved that is I did an aluminum and steel mix. So I did a light, if you look here, I didn't quite finish it here, so I just left that. You can see it's kind of a dark kind of color here. You can just see that. And so what I do is I actually take, and you guys most people know what dry brushing is, and I will go over that. I just dry brushed in some steel and aluminum to make it look more like a steel finish. This part here, I kind of left it where I chipped away some of the paint, but I left some of it. I still got to do a little bit of staining, but you could see how that's starting to look weathered. And you could see the inside. I did a little bit of weathering in there, but I'm going to do some weathering on the outside. Very minimal. Just picking up some of the pieces on it. The black, of course, this part's black. And what I did with the black is I actually added a bit of flat black and gray and just like toned it, dry brushed it very lightly. And you add a little bit of silver. And what that does is just pick up the highlights just very lightly. Because I want to leave this part black, and you can see the gears in there. Okay. You can see that. I got to cut off a tab there, and I may have to do a little bit on that right there, I see. But so that's that part's painted. Now, if I bring you over here, so I've got everything laid out. I'll bring this right over here. So I've laid out all the piping pieces, and I've marked what they are because I've taken them out of the styrofoam. I've marked what they are, and I've actually sprayed them a silver. I did a light gray, and then I did just a mist of silver over them. What I'm doing now is what the silver does is it actually brings up where a lot of the faults would be, like any lines or anything like that, right? Very lightly. So what I did is I went through all the parts, cleaned them up. I use one of these as well. It's just a scrub pad. You can buy these, are cheap. And I just polish it after very lightly. These things are very breakable, so you got to be very careful with them. Don't overdo it. So those are just about ready to get painted. This is the back part of this. We'll go back here. Sorry for the mess, but you know what? You see people with these clean benches, that's not reality. I mean, if you're working, your bench is a mess. And my bench, I actually cleaned it. It was a disaster because there's paint everybody knows what I'm talking about. Our great artists, I mean, they're a mess. So there's the back piece. So I have it somewhat somewhat getting there, but this needs a little more detail, and there is some black in here as well. So I am going to work at that. So you guys are going to watch. I am going to paint this. Also, those pipes, I was talking to Bruce Slater, who actually designed the kit. He's a fountain of information. And we were talking about the colors of the piping. And he said it was Tungham steel. I think I said that right. When I looked that up to see what the steel was, what the composites of the steel was, and I could put that up at the end here, it's 80 or 85% copper. So you know that the base color of it's going to be copper. And there is some aluminum, some zinc, and there's a couple other things. So if you did the major part of it in copper and then added some aluminum, there is some aluminum in it, more aluminum than the steel. So if you added some aluminum and a bit of steel to it, which I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to mix that, I think you'll have a pretty close mix to what the pipes were. That's the color of the pipes. A lot of the pipes were black as well. So if you want to have all black and you want, like if you're going to chip away at it, you're going to have to put that color underneath, because that's what the color of the pipes are. Are they nickel plated? I think maybe the fittings might have been. I'll have to talk to Bruce about that again. But yeah, he's a fountain of information. He right away got back to me because we can ask them questions, which is great. And he got back to me on it. That's what's great about Typhoon Legacy as well. They have the people there that will support it, right? Like if you had a question, these guys will get back to you and say, yeah, you know what? I have the part here and it's this color. So it's kind of neat. We're going to try and make it as accurate as we can. I worked in for the railway for years, and I worked in the one of the shops that, you know, fixed all the equipment. You know what? The colors, yeah, it would vary too. Like you could probably get if they had to put a new part on there, it could be gray for all you know, or black, or they mostly painted everything black. But you know, you never know. You could get the part; it could be natural. You know, they're not going to sit there and say, hey, send me a part, but make sure you paint it, right? It just didn't work like that. Like we had machines with different color parts until it went into the paint shop and they painted it one color, right? So it varies. And when it gets changed out in the field, it could be a different color. So is there anything right or wrong in the colors? Yeah, it's just depending on how you want to look at it. Also, I've got this. I'll just put this up here. There's a million videos of cleaning airbrushes. My airbrush is pretty dirty. I've kind of went the limit with it for cleaning. So what I do is usually give it a really good clean. I'll just drop it in some little bit of, well, quite a bit of Windex and a little bit of water. Just let it sit there for a bit and it loosens up all the paint and everything, and then clean it out, and, you know, no problems, and you'll be able to airbrush for a while. This is my old workhorse. I have a new airbrush, but I don't want to use it yet. But that's a good way to clean it out. So just let it sit and soak in there, and then usually don't let it soak too long. But, you know, I let it soak for about an hour or so, and then I start cleaning it all up again, and then run it through a little, and you're good to go. So I need my airbrush to spray this stuff. So you're going to see me doing some spraying as well. All right, we're going to continue on.